Hi guys, this is Adam and welcome to Shiny Tech Reviews. Now finally, I'm able to give you my review on the Mac Pro 2012. Now you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, isn't that the old model? You know, the trash can came out in 2013, the new Mac Pro, named the trash can. Why are you reviewing a 2012 model? Well, because it's the last great Mac Pro model to be upgradable. And by that I mean you can throw loads of new technology in. It's something that you can't do with the 2013 model. Now you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, it's 2016. Is there now a newer version of the latest Mac Pro? And the answer is no. Apple have shown no interest in upgrading the Mac Pro for professional users. Me, I'm an Adobe Premiere man, and I needed a machine that was Mac based because that's the operating system that I prefer. Again, I don't want to go into the Mac versus PC war. You'll find out that I'm also a Windows 10 guy as well, and I'll cover that later on in this review. So I needed a Mac Pro that was still upgradable. The 2012 Mac Pro is still upgradable. Now obviously you've got to get a reconditioned Mac Pro. You can get them pretty cheap from eBay, but I decided to go and buy one from create.pro, which is a company that offers bespoke Mac Pro models, and they can spec it out for you. Now, I thought it was going to be all plain sailing. I mean, the guys at Create Pro did an amazing job. You're able to spec out your own machine on the website, and it's quite straightforward. You know, you just click buy and then your Mac arrives, usually within a couple of days. Now, I was very impressed with the speed of how they got the Macs out to you. Their market is making these bespoke Mac Pros for professional use. Now obviously I do a lot of work for clients, I'm a professional video editor, and of course I needed a machine like this. Now if you look at the top spec Mac Pro, the current Mac Pro on the Apple website, it comes to over £7,000. Now that is a lot of money for a machine that you can't upgrade. I think you can upgrade the RAM and you can upgrade the hard drive, and that's it. They currently, mention, double graphics. You can get two 4 gig AMD graphics cards. I like to call them chips because they're not graphics cards. What I've got in my Mac Pro is a graphics card. So let's take a look at the back of the Mac Pro. It has the power supply outlet, 4 USB 3 ports thanks to the PCIe USB 3 card I've installed. Then we have inputs for 5 screens comprising of dual-link DVI, HDMI and 3 display ports. On the stock aluminium case we have 3 USB 2.0s. 2 Firewire ports, optical in and out for your audio, speakers and microphone inputs, and 2 Cat5 inputs for high-speed internet. And on the front of the case we have the power button, headphone input, 2 more USB 2.0 ports, and 2 more Firewire ports. Now, let's just talk about the current Mac Pro that I got spec'd out. So, mine has currently got 2 3.46 GHz Intel Xeon processors. So that's giving you a 12 core machine. Now obviously the architecture of the logic board, hash motherboard, is a little bit dated. But I looked at some bench tests online and a lot of them said they found that that version of the old Mac Pro was 3% slower than the top spec Mac Pro from 2013 that was launched then. That to me, you're not going to notice when you're using the machine. So to me, it seems like a no-brainer. Add that with that you can add something like a GTX 980 Ti graphics card, and I mean it's just laughable, isn't it? Really, you know what I mean? You're getting a 6 gig card that you can physically add to the machine. Why wouldn't you want to do that? If I wanted to go for a 12 gig graphics card, I could buy the Titan X by Nvidia. I just thought that was overkill, and again I looked at some Geekbench tests for the Titan X, and the performance between that and the 980 Ti, which is the one I got, was minimal. If we take a look inside the Mac Pro, you'll see that I've got media storage drives. They are 2 6TB hard drives, Western Digital Red hard drives, rated. So obviously, really it's 12 TB, only giving you 6. That is just for storing files, because obviously they are physical spinning hard disks, and obviously that's old technology now. Now my scratch disk I've got is a 120GB SSD just for scratch disks, which I point Premiere to, and that holds all the local files that Premiere caches to help load your video projects in faster. I've also got a SSD 240 gig one, which is just for rendering to. So obviously I don't render to the rated hard drives, I render to the rendered drive, the 240 gig one SSD, so that is lightning fast speeds for editing as well. The GPU is amazing for rendering, so is obviously the 12 cores, and none of them go over half when under full load, which is amazing. Now I've got an Angel Bird SSD 512, and that's got the MacOS operating system on. Currently I'm using Yosemite because El Capitan didn't play very well with Adobe Premiere for some reason, and Adobe and Apple were still trying to work that out. OS X Sierra is the latest operating system, and I haven't got that as well, but for a works machine you've got to work with a more stable system, and I've found Yosemite to be the more stable system. Obviously Apple and Adobe sometimes have trouble working together in terms of getting things like Premiere and After Effects, and sometimes even Photoshop and InDesign working when a new OS comes out. Windows, it's never really had a problem. I was well impressed with Windows 10, so I decided to install Boot Camp on my Mac Pro on a separate hard drive. Now this was trial and error, because if you look on YouTube and you look for tutorials online, they only ever partition the same hard drive and have obviously a dual boot that way. I wanted it on its own separate drive, so I bought a 480GB SSD and I mounted it to a PCIe card, because if you notice inside the Mac Pro I've got all my hard drive bays used up, and I needed to put Windows 10 on a separate SSD, so obviously I mounted the SSD onto the PCIe card and slotted it in. Now you'd think it would be plain sailing, however I discovered that when I was rendering under full load, sometimes the Mac would just restart, and I had no idea what was causing it. Sometimes it didn't do it and sometimes it did, and it took months and months of talking to Create Pro. They said that was a faulty graphics card. I wasn't having that, because there's no way I was going to buy another one for £500 and odd without successfully testing whether it was the graphics card. It didn't make any sense that the computer never restarted when I was using Photoshop or anything. It only restarted when I was using Adobe Premiere or Adobe Media Encoder, so anything that would put the graphics card under full load. But why was it doing it for some projects and not others? Well, I discovered that the reason why it was doing that was because some of the projects where it didn't restart, it wasn't really a complex project. It wasn't causing the graphics card to go under full load. When I rendered a really complex project with different video layers, color grading, image stabilization, titles, music, you name it, that's when it used to restart. Now I did some research online, and I found a blog by this guy who it was a 2-year-old blog. He said do not use a 6GB graphics card that takes an 8-pin connector from the motherboard in the Mac Pro 2012, because there won't be enough power to power the graphics card. And I was thinking, right, that sounds like my problem. So I emailed him back, and 2 days later, thank God, his email address hadn't changed, because a lot can happen in 2 years. He got back to us and he said, yeah, the only way to do it is to pinch power from the rest of the Mac. So if you look in the Mac Pro, there's 2 motherboard connections that carry 6-pin to a graphics card, hinting that you can only have a 6-pin connected graphics card. My Mac Pro came with a mini 6-pin cable coming off the logic board into the 6-pin on the graphics card, and a mini 6-pin to 8-pin going into the 8-pin on the graphics card. And that to me wasn't sending 8 pins worth of power down the cable, because it was only 6-pin coming off the logic board. So already, again, it's an amazing machine, but the architecture is starting to outdate, and it's starting to limit what type of graphics cards you can put in the machine. Obviously I just wanted to spec a machine out and ask the Create Pro guys to spec one out, but yet they still sent one out with what I could see, a machine that couldn't power the graphics card under full load, and that's a big problem. Random shutdowns can damage the card, it can damage your SSD drives, it could have caused a lot of damage. I asked the guy, well, how do you steal, power from, another part of the Mac? And he said you have to use the SATA ports. And I was thinking, well, I've got all the hard drive bays used up, where am I going to get the SATA ports from? And he said you can use them from the optical drives. So I had a decision, do I lose my media storage RAID to get the two SATA drives back so I could power the graphics card through the 8-pin connector, or do I take out the optical bays? So far I've never used the Blu-ray writer at all, but I still wanted just in case I ever need it. So I took that out and used the two SATA ports to power the card. So I had to get two SATA to 8-pin connector into the card. The thing is, this cable was really short and I couldn't even get the side of the Mac back on. But what I did was, to test that this was finally the answer, I left the side off for a couple of days. I added loads of projects to the Adobe Media Encoder, set it away to render overnight to see whether the machine would restart, and guess what? Success. The machine didn't restart, so therefore the SATA ports was given enough power to the 8-pin cable going into the graphics card. Therefore, under full load, my graphics card was fine. So I needed to extend the 8-pin cable, because obviously what was happening was that the cable coming from the SATA ports was dangling down, and that's what was stopping us getting the side back on. So I ordered an 8-pin extension cable, and for some strange reason which I've never been able to figure out, it would not fit into the 8-pin adapter, yet the 8-pin adapter would fit into my graphics card. I went to Maplin and explained, have you got a cable for this, and I took, you know, the cable with us. He gave me the idea, why don't you get SATA extension cables and then just extend the SATA ends of the 8-pin adapter to stretch over a longer distance. So that's what I did. Now obviously Apple are all about, you know, everything looking as nice inside as outside, but you know, needs must. Once that side's on, it might look like spaghetti junction inside, but when the side's on, you can't see it. The Mac is finally working as it should. So now I'm back editing 4K video, HD video. I can render pretty much any project that I can think of, and everything is working absolutely fantastic. Would I recommend the Mac Pro 2012 for creative professionals in music or video editing, considering I've had problems myself? And the answer is yes, because now that my problems are solved, this is a solid machine. You've got a 12-core processor, you've got 64 gig of RAM, you've got a 6 gig graphics card, you've got SSDs for your operating system, you've got SSDs for your scratch disk and SSDs for your renders. You've got, you know, 2 NAS drives in there, you know, to store your work to. So I think I've maxed this computer out as much as I can. And on what planet is a 12-core machine, Mac or PC, not a fast machine in this day and age for creative professionals? Now you're probably thinking, Adam, well, what about your Blu-ray writer now? You can't use it. Well, simple fix. Here it is here. Now it doesn't look very nice because obviously it's meant to be hidden, all of this, but there you go. There's a SATA to USB 3 cable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this under the desk about here, and I'm going to get obviously a USB 3 extension cable, and then I'm going to plug it into the back of my USB 3 port, because I've got the USB 3 PCI card in the Mac Pro, and then I'll have this fully working. It's just now inside the Mac Pro. So, you know, it could have been that I had to sort of sacrifice some of the technology in the Mac Pro, but I found a way around it. Now that's got to show you how upgradable this machine is. Now I'm able to let you guys know that this is how I did it, and I hope it's going to help somebody else out there, because there was no YouTube videos on putting Windows 10 on a separate SSD to the macOS. There was no tutorials on graphics card restart problems and powering it and stuff like that. So this is my, you know, my video to you guys. If anyone has the same problems, if anyone's got a similar problem that they haven't fixed, please write it in the comments below. I'm really keen to, you know, engage with you and help you if I can. But this machine, I would give a 10 out of 10. Seriously, it's the best Mac solution for professionals who want a lot of power, and this has got a lot of life in it yet. So there you go, the Mac Pro Tower 2012 model by Create Pro. Amazing technology, highly rated. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more tech reviews, because I've got a backlog of them already shot and I just need to get them edited up on the channel. And and I hope to find some sponsors out there for this part of the channel eventually, so I can review brand new technology as well as just the stuff that I rely on to do my job. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next video.